You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Welcome to Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. Andy and Brian here with you as always, and the day has finally come. Jeff Rimmer's joining the show today, and we are very excited for it. But before we even go down that road, we got a few things we want to get out of the way real quick. So I'm going to let Brian take the reins and run.
Yep.
And not hit my desk.
I was going to say just a couple of quick things before we get into this interview. And we've actually, as we're speaking now, we've already done the interview. But we just wanted to get these couple housekeeping items out of the way before we get to the good part, the really good part of this show. So let's start real quick in Montreal. Last week I mentioned, and kind of like with the other stuff I predicted in Minnesota too, it's like, I really hope this ages like milk and he signs soon. And he did. Lane Hudson extends in Montreal 8 years, $8.85 million per season. So they solved the whatever ongoing drama they had there. Everybody is at peace and happy. The deal signed, and now Hudson is going to develop into the bright young star that he's going to be with the Montreal Canadiens. So the deal's done. And for the Habs, I mean, they're off to a great start to this season. They're already in the infancy of the season, making my preseason prediction look like shit. So, yeah, the vibes right now are about as good as they can be in Montreal, given their start to the season. And now that this contract's done, I mean, Habs fans got to be feeling great about themselves.
I had my mic muted.
I was going to say, I thought I lost you for a sec, too.
Nope,
Your screen froze up.
Nope, I just love muting my mic. Correct me if I'm wrong. It happened not long after I released last week's episode either.
Yeah, it happened early last week, I'm pretty sure.
Because I remember, I think it was like shortly after I published it, and I was like, oh shit, there you go.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, like you, I think we knew it was only a matter of time. I think it would have been pretty silly for Montreal not to have extended him. So glad they were able to reach a deal. And yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that gets me. I mean, there was so much noise around this, and I get it. It's a big deal. This is a player who projects to be one of the best defensemen in the league for the next 15 years. So I totally understand the sense of urgency and the anxiety that comes with negotiations like this. But the reality is he's such a young player, and being still restricted to the team. I mean, if he were a free agent, he'd be an RFA. Like, he's still tied to the team in such a way that, to me, I never understood the worry of, oh, we got to get him signed, or what if he doesn't want to stay? Like, it to me, and again, not that I'm some genius, but it just always felt like he was going to sign there. So I'm glad the drama's over before it really turned into an even bigger problem. And again, the Habs are off to a really good start. So we'll see how they move on from here. Another team and player specifically off to a good start. The Vegas Golden Knights are 4-0-2 to start this year. And a lot of that is coming from the play of their big guns, but most notably Jack Eichel, who has 15 points across their first 6 games. I mean, the guy signs the big extension. And man, is he making it worth every penny for Vegas right now. I mean, he obviously gets a big bump in pay. It pushes him over what McDavid gets, but you know what? He's won a cup, and he's outscoring everybody in the league right now. So this guy's earning every penny he's getting paid out in Vegas. And again, this is another situation where just get this done before it becomes a headache and a constant conversation piece, because obviously Eichel's loving it in Vegas right now.
Yeah, and God, just look how good Vegas is looking anyway.
They are so disgustingly good right now. I mean, I know they lost those first 2 games, but they're just on a rip right now. I don't think anybody's stopping them this year, at least not in the West. I mean, they're as good as anybody.
Yeah, I mean, they look lethal, and I mean, to be fair, we said that that's what was going to happen, and I think everybody kind of knew that, regardless of what our opinions ended up being. So, but yeah, Jack Eichel, man, absolute lethality on the Golden Knights.
Yeah, and really, I mean, they're getting outstanding play up and down their lineup anyways, but like Dorofiev's got 6 goals already. Mark Stone's got Mark Stone 11 assists.
Yeah.
Mitch Marner picked up his first 2 goals with Vegas last night. He's off to a really good start, 8 points in 6 games. Everybody that needs to play well there is playing well. Their top 6 guys are leading them in scoring. Barbashev, Hurdle, Marner, Dorofeev, Eichel, Stone. Those guys that you would think are going to drive all the play there are currently driving all the play to start the season. So Looks like the Marner edition has paid off as intended. So good for Vegas there. And it's nice to see him get his first couple out there. But again, I just wanted to take that quick aside to mention the fact that Jack Eichel is just on an otherworldly scoring pace to start this season, much like how I think it was Jack Hughes. I think it was 2 seasons ago. He started the year at like a 3-point per game pace and then got injured and missed like the whole season. So this is kind of the run Jack Eichel's on right now, just filling in the net, not both sides of the puck, but both sides of the score sheet, getting goals and assists.
Yeah. One thing that I don't want to overlook here, you've got to give credit to Bruce Cassidy too, who truly is an amazing coach. He's one of the best coaches in the NHL. And at this point, I don't think that's disputable, especially since he has a Stanley Cup to his name now. Vegas was good before Bruce Cassidy was their coach. I understand that, but I mean, he ultimately comes in and he gets the team to the final frontier, and they haven't really let their foot off the gas since. And I think this season, I think this is the force to be reckoned with in the league this year is the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah. Also a correction. They did not lose their first 2 games. They lost 2 of their first 3. But their first 3 games all went past regulation. Their first one was a 6-5 shootout loss to LA. Then they beat the Sharks in OT, but everybody's beating the Sharks. And then they lost to Seattle. But really, outside of their first game against LA and even the game they won on Thursday against Boston, which was kind of a high scoring affair, I mean, they just look on both sides of the puck. They look really well balanced, and they should. I mean, this is a really well constructed team. But to me, 15 points over 6 game stretch. Now, obviously, almost 3 points a game is not sustainable, or 2.5 points a game. It's not sustainable, but I'll be fascinated to see where Jack Eichel can take the scoring race if he keeps even if he plays at a point per game pace the rest of the season. He's just going to absolutely blow everybody else out of the water. So,
yeah, it's going to be an interesting season, and I think it's just going to be 82 games of Vegas kicking everybody's ass, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with them. But I wanted to just kind of shout those 2 things out. I didn't feel like too much huge news this last week anyways, which kind of made the setup for this show even easier since we had such a great interview. But I did want to at least get to those things before we moved on. So with that in mind, you and I just had what was probably the most incredible conversation we possibly could have with Jeff Rimmer, former play-by-play voice of the Blue Jackets. So we will now cut away from this, and you all will get to listen or watch that. And we hope you all enjoyed as much as we did. All right, and for our special interview this week, we are over the moon excited to bring in this great guest. Spent several decades broadcasting, covering hockey, most notably Columbus Blue Jackets. Fans will know him as the television play-by-play voice of the Blue Jackets for 20 seasons, but he is now a happily retired man. We are honored and privileged to bring in our guest this week, Jeff Rimmer. Jeff, welcome to the show. We are so glad to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's my pleasure.
Yeah, this is very exciting to have you here. I mean, we actually do a specific segment at the end of each show about the Blue Jackets just to bring a little more attention in. We have a lot of listeners in Ohio and in the Columbus area, and since Andrew and I both live in Ohio as well, we figured it would be appropriate to do. So having you in here is like as much of a blessing as we could have asked for. So this is very exciting.
You're being too kind, but that's okay.
Well, no. You were kind to Columbus for 20 years, so we should be grateful just to have you here.
Absolutely. I think when everybody thinks Columbus Blue Jackets, I know for me, the first thing that comes to mind is Jeff Rimmer. So this is,
yes.
I mean, we made it to the top, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say this is like the top of the mountain. This is very exciting, though. So without too much ado, Jeff, I do want to ask you quite a bit. I have a few things on my list here, and I'm hoping we can kind of get to all of them. But I figure as a guy who went to school for broadcasting, and obviously I have a lot of idols in television and radio, yourself included, I would love to know from you personally. You've made several great calls over the year. I think a lot of people outside the market think of your call of that great Rick Nash goal in Arizona. That was a beauty, and just several great Blue Jackets moments over the years. For me personally, I loved your call. This was 2018 against the Capitals. Matt Calvert scored a beautiful overtime winner against them. At the time, gave them a big series lead, and Bobrovsky was like a 50-save performance that game. That call of yours, I remember like it was yesterday, but you're the man behind the mic. What's the biggest moment you can remember calling, or even your favorite moment?
obviously the Nash goal is right up there. In fact, in Canada, it was referred to as the goal of the decade. And that was Rick Nash, not Jeff Rimmer. But the call, as it turned out, and the little history behind that goal is, if you recall, Rick Nash got a penalty. And it was just a few minutes before he was in that penalty box. It was a penalty that should not have even been called. And you knew, and I certainly knew and kind of anticipated that when he came out of the box, there was something special that was going to happen. And indeed, that was the case. And he literally went through the entire team. The two defensemen on the blue line were turned around like turnstiles, and the puck found its way to the back of the net on a typical Nash goal because he could find the holes. So, yeah, that's right up there. Other goals, Dubinsky's goal in the playoffs, Nick Foligno's goal in the playoffs that almost I thought was going to bring the roof down on the stadium, the series clinching goal in what turned out to be a 4-game series sweep of the Tampa Bay Lightning certainly is up there as well, but we can go on forever. I have spent 47 years in the National Hockey League, and in all honesty, my 20 years in Columbus were the highlight of my career.
That's
I could say with confidence that Blue Jackets fans not only were fortunate enough to have you around all that time, but deeply miss you now. Obviously, Steve Mears has since come in and has done a very good job in Columbus as well. But I think all of us would be foolish to say that we don't miss you. So it's definitely a lot of those calls. It's fun to look back in Jackets history and just hear your voice making those, calling out those great moments with the team. So it's definitely there's definitely a lot, like you said. I feel like we could probably go all day with this and just say, "Oh, you remember this one? Oh, yeah, that was a sick moment." Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could do this forever. One quick aside too: were you at the Stadium Series game this past February or March?
I sure was.
That was chilly.
The Blue Jackets invited me back just to tell a tale out of school. It was a cold day, and
that's right. You did the pregame signature they did on the scoreboard, didn't you? That's right.
Yeah, I did, and I also spent 2 hours doing radio on 97.1 The Fan, which, by the way, I still do on a weekly basis. And,
nice.
I was fortunate not to tell a tale out of school, as I was about to say, but I was very comfortable in a suite, and that was the way to go. So
hey, you know what? I was going to say, if they were inviting you out, they better put you up in a suite. We were up in the upper bowl, and we had to go out on the concourse and get blankets. We thought we were pretty well bundled up. We're from Wisconsin. We can handle the cold, but man, we were out there and we were just looking at each other shivering. So we broke down in second intermission and went and bought blankets because we were just that cold.
Mine's right behind me.
I got to be honest. I'm originally from Canada.
Yeah.
Spent 5 years in Edmonton prior to being married, and actually just before I got married. And it gets to 40 below in January and February, and that's where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet.
Yep.
So I'm certainly used to the cold, but I'm kind of spoiled, and let me tell you, it was certainly special to be there for that game. And it was very special to be in a suite. And as it turned out, just outside the suite that we were fortunate enough to be in, my wife and I, was the ESPN broadcast with Sean McDonough, who I've known for years from my baseball days in Baltimore and in Montreal with the Expos. And so I had a nice chance to visit with Sean because I didn't see him too many times along the road because, unfortunately, ESPN, up until this year, didn't do too many Blue Jacket games. But with the Jackets now here, knocking on the door and an improved hockey team, you're going to see more and more Blue Jackets games on national television. And that's the way it should be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think back, I started watching hockey about 11, 12 years ago. And so one of my first seasons watching the game at length, I mean, outside of watching old highlights, one of my first seasons watching the game at length was that 13-14 season where they kind of sneak in at the end, and they really put up a fight against a really good Pittsburgh team, and that was my first real introduction to the Blue Jackets fan base and the passion, and I was like, holy cow, this is a smaller market, and these guys are ready to, as you said earlier, blow the roof off the place. I couldn't believe how exciting and passionate those fans are in that building. And then the first time we went to a game there together, I just could not believe how loud and raucous it was for a game in the middle of November. It's an incredible environment, and I'm glad, to your point, more people are going to now start getting the opportunity to see this group in this arena and this fan base on a large scale.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, it should. And to kind of piggyback off of what Brian said, I've been, obviously, much like yourself, not to the same extent, but I've been to many of the arenas around the league, and Columbus is up there, one of the greatest venues to watch any sporting event, I would argue. It's always loud. Regardless of how well or not so well the team might be doing, it's always full. It's always a raucous crowd. I love it. The Cannon, I know people who travel across the country just to see the Cannon. There's just so much that's gone into this organization, and there's so many people who are so committed to it and who care about it so much. And I think that's something that's really unique to a small market team. And you can argue that with any sport, but the Jackets are so involved in their community too. It's just a really great organization. And I think sometimes, for the most part, no, but sometimes fans can underappreciate how fortunate we are to have the Jackets around.
100%. As far as the fan base that you speak of, second to none in the National Hockey League, and they are so loyal. And I had the fortune in my first couple of years with the Blue Jackets to host a afternoon drive show with Kirk Herbstreit, who's a huge Columbus Blue Jackets fan. And Herbie and I remain great friends. Of course, he's no longer doing the talk show in Columbus, but I can tell you that he waves that Blue Jackets flag even on college football telecasts. And it's great to see, and he's a great ambassador for the Blue Jackets as well.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Bragg.
No, I was going to say I'm ready to go to my next question, but if you have something else to put in, please.
Oh, I just want to say, for Brian and I, we've been fortunate enough to kind of have a behind the scenes view of the Jackets, in the sense that my wife and I are season ticket holders for the Cleveland Monsters, the AHL affiliate of the Jackets. So it's really nice to get a firsthand look at the prospect pool that the Jackets have, so you kind of have an idea. And I was very ecstatic to see that Jet Greaves finally gets his shot in the NHL this year, because having watched him in Cleveland the last couple of years, I was like, this guy deserves a shot, at least as a backup spot as a goaltender in the NHL. And it's nice to see him finally getting that. But it's nice to have that behind the scenes look, so what the prospect pool looks like from watching in person. So it makes it a little easier to gauge the kind of moves the team should make as a whole. Obviously, I'm not a GM, but and I think that's another reason the Jackets are set up for success. They have Don Waddell, who's a phenomenal GM. I think the future is very bright for this organization right now.
That's true, Andy. And you talk about the prospect pool. Last year, we saw a number of young players finally pop, Marchenko, Voronkov, Tkachuk, who pretty well have now established themselves as everyday NHLers. You have Jet Greaves really being given not only a shot to be an NHL goaltender, but to be perhaps the Jackets' number one goaltender.
Correct.
And that Cleveland Monsters organization is so important. It's so vital to the future of the team. You're going to see more and more players, I think, come through the ranks, pay their dues in Cleveland and the American Hockey League, and then step up to the NHL. And that includes the coach as well. Trent Vogelhuber is someone that I've known since he was very, very young. He, of course, came up through the Blue Jackets junior program, and as good of a player as he was, actually given a shot in the National Hockey League, although knee injuries curtailed his career, he has become an excellent coach, and he will be a head coach in the not too distant future. You can mark my words on that.
And that's something I hope to see, because I've loved him behind the bench with Cleveland. Obviously, he was on Cleveland when they won the Calder Cup in 2016. I love having somebody who's so deeply rooted in the organization at the helm there. It makes all the world of difference, and I think it goes a long way as far as team chemistry is concerned as well. I think that plays a big factor.
Comes from a great family. And of course, apple didn't fall far from the trees. And he is someone that I've got a great deal of respect for sure.
I've heard good things about him. We've actually got our Meet the Team event coming up here in the next week or so. So I'm hoping to get to link up with him while I'm there. And
say hello for me, please.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. So, Brian, I can see you're itching to get something out. So
I'm just listening in right now. I'm trying to get my brain to retain everything. I don't want to do that thing where they say you black out and forget everything you talked about for the last hour. I'm trying not to do that. So, before we move into this next question, because this next question will kind of relate to where I'm going with this, I'd like to give you the opportunity. You mentioned you've been in this business you were in the business for 47 years. So why don't you give our listeners just a kind of a brief background about yourself, where you got started, the sports you've covered over the years, and obviously the road that led you to 20 great seasons in Columbus.
Well, 47 years, as I said, in the National Hockey League, parts of 6 decades as a broadcaster, and I'm only 29 years of age.
Yeah. Hey, so am I. Yeah, I was going to say we.
What a coincidence! We're all the same age.
Exactly. I started in Calgary, and John Davidson, of course, was the president of the team and just a terrific hockey person. He was an excellent goaltender. And my dad passed away. My mom remarried, and we moved. Her husband was out west. I moved from Toronto to Calgary, and walked into homeroom in the 10th grade. And the first person I saw there in the 10th grade, and we've been great friends since, best friends, is John Davidson. And JD and I spent a lot of time together in class, and as it turned out, on the ice. And I had no business. He was like AAA junior, an excellent goaltender who made it all the way to the NHL and was a high draft pick of the St. Louis Blues. But he convinced me, much to my dismay and much against what I wanted to do, he convinced me to try out for the AAA hockey team. And it was at Rosecon Arena in Calgary. I'm the first player in the history of AAA hockey to be cut before practice started. You know where my hockey career was going, but I expected it, and there was no reason to go out. But JD and I used to skip typing class. We was an outdoor rink just outside Henry Wisewood High School, and we would skate on the ice and take shots and spend time together. And he said, "Come on, Ramsey, get some extra ice time and just try out." Well, I didn't expect that I'd be cut, but there were over 200 kids trying out for AAA in Calgary at the time. By the way, the same program that Cale Makar, the wonder kid with Colorado, came out of. So I'm cut before practice. I get tapped on the shoulder, and the coach says, "Hey, young man, house league starts on Monday." And I, of course, went out for house league. And guess what, gentlemen? I was on the snowbank few minutes into the house league.
Oh, no.
So at that point, realistically, the message was sent, and I wanted to be a hockey player. There's no question I wanted to be an NHL player. But my dream came to an end then, and I knew in the 10th grade what I wanted to do was be a broadcaster, and preferably a hockey broadcaster. And I zeroed in on that, went through high school at Henry Wisewood, then on to Mount Royal College, which is now Mount Royal University in Calgary, in communications. And I'm a guy that, as some people say, may be overly aggressive, but I was determined to get ahead. And I made and established contacts with all the radio, television people in Calgary, and ended up getting a radio sports weekend job while I was going to school.
Yeah.
And ended up doing the Saturday and Sunday afternoon sportscasts on a station by the call letters CFAC, which is now the sports station. So many communities across Canada and the US have sports stations identified. And I also, at the same time, went to meet with the general manager of the cable television station, and they had a community station. And I talked the general manager into giving me my own TV show, weekly TV show. I did some junior hockey play-by-play of John and the Calgary Centennials, which was Major Junior. And I also did a weekly talk show. giving you guys a lot of stories here because what I was saying earlier, I'm now in the process of writing a book.
Oh, wonderful.
Nice.
There's a lot of great stories that I have to tell, a lot of opinions that I have. And I just signed an agreement with a publishing company to write a book that'll be out before next hockey season.
Yes.
And I said to you guys, I'd love to come back and join you when the book is
Yeah, we would love to have the.
Yeah,
That'd be incredible.
Anyway, again, because I leave no stone unturned. Muhammad Ali, and you guys may be a little bit too young to remember when Ali was stripped of the heavyweight title, but
Correct.
he was stripped of the world heavyweight title. You guys are, don't tell too many people, but a little younger than I am, just a little.
Yeah. I'll try and keep that on the down low.
As a 19-year-old, I went to the press conference in Calgary because Ali was stripped of the title, and he came out west to the Calgary Stampede grounds, not around the Stampede, which is world famous, but came out and fought 3 3-round exhibitions. But weeks before, and before training for it, he had a major press conference. I put on my best shirt and tie, went to the press conference, walked up to Angelo Dundee, the world famous manager of the heavyweight champion. And I said, Mr. Dundee, I'd like to talk to the champ. And he said, by all means, you have a camera. And I said, no, sir, but I've got a studio up the road. Well, all these people that were there, and by the way, there were national networks from Canada and the US. You could hear the place kind of break out and kind of laugh that this young kid here is going to try to interview Ali, but he has no camera. Well,
Yeah.
little did Dundee know and Ali to learn and everybody else there that I was going to talk the heavyweight champion of the world to come to our studio, which was a mile up the road on McLeod Trail. Brand new facility, beautiful studio. And that's where I did my weekly show. So the press conference ends, everybody does their one-on-ones. I'm standing next to Dundee, and all the people there, network people, local people, newspaper people, they all kind of knew me, except maybe the US network people. And I'm standing next to Dundee, and Ali walks over and says, come on, Angelo, time to go. And Dundee says, hold on, champ. He says, this young man here would like to interview you. Well, Ali's giving me the once over. And this is when he was in his prime.
Yeah.
And he's looking up and down. He says, okay, kid, calls me kid, where's your camera? I said, champ, I don't have a camera, but I got a studio a mile and a half up the road. The place breaks out in pure laughter. Ali looks around and he says to the limo driver, he says, it's a mile up the road. He says, oh yeah, it is. It's just a mile up top of the hill at McLeod Trail. Ali says, okay, kid, go. I'll be there. Well, I race back to the studio, tell everybody to get the studio ready. Nobody believes me. All the crew says there's no way that the heavyweight champion of the world is coming to our little cable television studio. Well,
Right.
Guess what? The secretaries here, they're all congregating in the lobby. And next thing I know, the general manager walks in from lunch and he says, what's all the commotion? Why is everybody in the lobby? He says, well, Jeff Rimmer says the heavyweight champion of the world's coming. A few minutes later, in walks Ali, sits down in the studio. We do 25 minutes because it's a half-hour show. We throw in a couple of community spots. And at the end, Ali turns to the camera and he says, I've been on the Dick Cavett show, Johnny Carson, Michael Douglas, David Frost. He goes on and on and on. He said, and this young man here, what did you say your name was, kid? And I said, Jeff Rimmer. And he turned, he said, Jeff Rimmer, he held his own with me, Muhammad Ali, and I predict in 5 years, he'll be the greatest, the most outstanding, the most controversial sportscaster in the world. I said, thank you. He said, in your dreams, got up and walked out.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, that was a valuable lesson for me. I spent 5 years there. I went to LA after the Olympics. I did the Olympics in '76 with Nadia Comaneci, which turned out to be the premier event on television. I worked alongside Chris Schenkel, who was ABC's premier Olympic broadcaster. I made some contacts. I promised my wife, who I met on a blind date, got married, and I took her from Los Angeles to Edmonton, of all places. Quite a difference
Yeah.
Yep.
So I promised her after the Olympics that we'd move back to LA for her, and I'd attempt to find a job. I almost got hired by the Los Angeles Kings to do radio play-by-play, but
Wow.
Jack Kent Cooke, who was a Canadian, listened to my tape and he said, "I'm not hiring this guy because he sounds too Canadian."
Oh,
I'm trying to tell the people here in Los Angeles that this is not a Canadian sport. This is a world sport.
Right.
Long and short, I took a television job doing weekend TV sports. I never got a full-time job, and then was hired in Montreal to work with Dick Irvin of Hockey Night in Canada fame. I was there for 7 years. Then the general manager that hired me went to Baltimore, hired me to do television and radio, and ended up getting hired by the Washington Capitals and also did Orioles baseball for home team sports. And then the Florida Panthers offered me a job when the franchise started, moved there. Doug McLean, who was an assistant coach in Washington, came to Columbus as general manager and later president. And he said, "I want you to come with me." And I said, "I've got a 4-year contract." Long and short, we had the lockout in 2004. I had a contract for 4 years, but it was 2 and 2. In the event of a lockout, they could hold off the final 2 years and work out something else negotiated. Well, in the interim, they made me an offer. It really wasn't very good. And Doug came back and said, "I want you to come to Columbus and I'll make you a team employee." It was the best move I've made as a broadcaster. And of course, came to Columbus. So that's the long and short of it. And I'm a very, very fortunate guy. And what I would tell and have told, I speak to a number of young broadcasters, if you want it, you can get it. But you've got to be prepared to do whatever it takes. And it could mean, starting in a small town, which I did, Lethbridge, Alberta, for 6 months before getting the job at CBC Edmonton. And do not leave a stone unturned, and do not accept no as an answer. One door is going to close. There's going to be another one that's going to open, and make sure you're the guy walking through it.
I like it. That's very, very sound advice. Yeah, so it's very good. All right. Well, that leads me into this next question then. I mean, obviously you've spent several years broadcasting these games, so you got to see a lot of amazing places. What was your favorite city to go visit as a broadcaster? Like when you saw it on the calendar, you're like, "Oh, I can't wait for our road trip to X city."
Well, selfishly, being a Canadian, I always wanted to go back to Toronto because that was my hometown. And growing up as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, I dreamed about broadcasting in the old Maple Leaf Gardens. And then, of course, the Air Canada Centre, which is a replica, as it turned out, of what they built in Maple Leaf Gardens. But it goes beyond that. There aren't too many cities. I'd be easier in answering the question, which was my least favorite cities.
Let's hear some of those too.
Been my favorite cities, but I enjoyed obviously New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, the major U.S. hubs. I enjoyed selfishly, I enjoyed going to the Canadian cities, and I'll tell you why. Not because they were in Canada, because they had the best broadcast locations.
Oh, yeah.
In Vancouver, we're hanging over the ice. Literally, I mean, just a short distance from touching the goaltender. Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, we were up in the gondola. That was up high, but they built the Air Canada Centre. And again, you're hanging over the ice. The new building in Montreal, replacing the Forum, again, over the ice. Mickey Redmond and his play-by-play guy there, Ken Daniels in Detroit, they actually, how about this? When they built Little Caesars, they took a tape measure and they measured the distance between ice level and the gondola in Montreal with the new Bell Center, and they duplicated the gondola and the exact broadcast locations for both the home and the visitors.
Wow.
So so they replicated that. They were asked by the folks that built the arena and the Red Wings themselves where they thought the best broadcast location was. They said Montreal, and they built it. So selfishly, the bottom line, I really enjoyed broadcasting in Canada. Not to say there weren't great locations in the U.S. Dallas, we were on the club level, And again, very low. You can see the ice. Arizona, when they moved to the university, Arizona State, I mean, that was too low. But again,
Right.
we were just, what, 3, 4, 5 rows up from the ice level. That was a little bit too close. But
Yeah.
we selfishly, as broadcasters, look for the best broadcast location. Now, the worst in the NHL, you'll be surprised when I say it, is Edmonton. They built this big, massive arena. But what they did, they were going to build a gondola. But guess what? They ran out of money. So they have the upper press box, which comes off the ceiling. And not only is it high, but it's way back. And it's not an ideal location to broadcast. You cannot even read. The Oilers have these funky jerseys, these home jerseys with the colors. You cannot read the numbers on the jerseys up there. So you go by a feel, you go by what the players over the years, you know most of them and you know their tendencies. So it becomes a little bit easier, but it's not ideal.
Right.
Yeah. I've also heard from listening to Anthony LaPanta, who's the television play-by-play voice for the Minnesota Wild. I've heard the media gondola in the Saddle Dome in Calgary is kind of
I've heard
kind
that
of an
is
adventure to cross with the way that it goes across the ceiling of the arena.
Yeah.
I've heard that's kind of a dicey one to get up to. What are your thoughts in Calgary?
Well, you're way up high, and even if they have the writers on one side, the broadcast locations on the other, but not even literally crossing over the ice. We got off the elevator, go up steps. We're in a suite area, and then they open up a gate for us, and we literally, as you walk, you can feel the gondola there kind of shaking.
Oh.
And until you finally get to your proper broadcast location, and then you're suspended over the ice there as well. Now, early on in my career, I was fortunate enough to broadcast in the old Boston Garden and Chicago Stadium. And there you had to go through the stands, and you were in an actual bucket. You climbed down an elevator or a ladder, and were in a bucket, and you're suspended over the ice. That was interesting and great location. But you're actually over the ice in a bucket, both in the old Chicago Stadium and the Boston Garden.
Wow.
Man,
That's insane.
Some of these setups, it's something that you really don't think about, but I mean, yeah, they got to put the broadcaster somewhere in the arena, and you never think of some of the adventures you guys kind of have to go on to get to where you're going.
No danger pay, though. No danger pay.
Yeah, no hazard pay. What's that all about?
Yeah, man.
I'm on Fox Sports. Well, I guess they're not Fox Sports. NHL's not on Fox Sports anymore, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. And again, I had heard stories about the Calgary that media gondola there, and I was like, man, I'd love to talk to somebody who's been up there, and now here we are. So that's fascinating to hear about that.
A lot of broadcasters are scared of heights. I wasn't scared of heights, but it was a bit of an adventure walking actually across from the press to the broadcast area, because again, literally you're suspended over the ice, and a little shaky, and there were some broadcasters that simply wouldn't do it. But
yeah, I think I'd be in that group.
Broadcasters, but it was
I'm not afraid of heights, but I am afraid of falling. So that still might be a no-go for me.
I think the problem I'd have is just the shaking. Like that would drive me. That'd make me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about that. So, but I was actually going to ask the same question. I'd been wondering about Calgary's too, because I think it was, it might have even been a Bruins broadcast from some years ago where Jack Edwards and Andy Brickley were talking about the walk to the press box on the catwalk. Yeah. And I think it was a Nesson broadcast that showed the walk across the catwalk, and I was like, that's not for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say they can keep that.
Yeah. Brian, you can go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, I just asked about kind of, and again, I don't know if difficulty is the right word, but just kind of what you have to go through to access some of these spots to call games from. Let's talk about during COVID. Obviously, huge changes all around the world and the way people live their day-to-day lives. How is it for you as a broadcaster? Were you in a spot? Were you in like the remote facilities or whatever, calling the game from a live feed, or were you at the arenas calling the games?
No, we were not initially. Later on, we were, but when they were in the bubble, we were broadcasting from our studios. It was Bally Sports at the time, and we were broadcasting from the studios in Cincinnati. And we were broadcasting off monitors, Jody and I. And it wasn't ideal. As Jody said, it's tougher for the play-by-play guy than the color guy because you have an extra few seconds to even get a chance to look at a replay before coming on and explaining from his vantage point. But doing play-by-play was difficult. You didn't have, for me, getting through it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't ideal. You had to obviously follow whatever the camera was following. But for me, what bothered me most was you didn't have that contact with the players or the coaches. And one thing that I prided myself on as a broadcaster, whether I was doing the gymnastics in the Olympics, hockey, baseball, college football in Canada, no matter what I was doing, preparation was important to me. And not having that contact with the players, not having that contact with the coaches, not knowing what the necessary lineup was going to be for that night. What about injuries? What about players coming back? So we didn't have that information other than PR, Blue Jackets PR. You would have no idea what the visitors are doing, but as far as your team is concerned, you would get an update from Todd Sherrock or his assistant Glenn and knowing who the starting goaltender was and any lineup changes. But that was it. But you wanted to talk to the players. And initially, they did Zoom interviews. But even then, it was one or two players maximum. But I pride myself, Jody does, and any broadcaster that's worth his salt, you want to be able to have that ability to communicate with the players and get their thoughts. It was vital for what is a 3-hour broadcast. And that's what we missed most.
All right. Well, that brings me into a question that my wife wanted me to ask you. And now that I know that you were involved in the bubble, I can ask this. So when the Jackets were playing Tampa in the bubble, and at the time, her and I were living in Florida, so we either got the national broadcast or we got the Tampa broadcast, and I did not listen to the Tampa broadcast because I am not a Tampa Bay fan. I just got to know, I sat there and watched every period of the fifth overtime game. From a broadcasting standpoint, mentally, what kind of a toll, if any, did that take on you, or were you just loving every second of it?
Well, Jonas Corposalo made my job easier because he kept it going. He was outstanding in that game. It's probably the highlight of his career if you'd asked him.
Oh yeah.
I was fine. I was fine. I have a little bit of a secret, and sometimes people say, "Well, Jeff Rimmer mispronounced the name or whatever." I like to keep my throat lubricated, and I. Over the years, I can't tell you how many bags of hulls that I went through. So as long as long as I was lubricated, I was fine. And Jody would ask me after each, and we did our stand-ups. We actually were in the press room at Nationwide for those games in the bubble, and that was subsequent to initially being in the studios. And what happened was, if the Cavaliers were playing, we couldn't use the studio. We only had one studio. So what ended up was that we broadcast out of Nationwide Arena. So anyway, getting back to Jody kept asking me, "Are you all right? You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm great. I'm great." And we would kibitz about it when we got on camera. Yeah, remember, just holding strong. And again, the play-by-play guy is a little more active than the color analyst. So, but I wouldn't ever trade what happened through those games and through the bubble and through going to Cincinnati for the games. It was a great experience and made you appreciate even more stepping into the broadcast booth and being around the players for morning skates and in between games for practices and the like. Just an experience you go through, and one that I really, I think, learned from and enjoyed.
Yeah,
that was a great answer.
Yeah, and honestly, it's incredible. I mean, you think about it. I mean, in a general sense, a lot of people might just think, I mean, being a broadcaster is pretty cush job. You know, you come in and you watch the game, you call the game. It's simple as that. But people don't think about all the outside circumstances you have to go through. For example, driving, you know, almost across the state to get to Cincy to call games from the studio, or calling them at the arena, not being on site, and not being at the actual game as it's being played. Like, it's not just a cut and dry thing. There's a lot that goes into these broadcasts, and I think COVID did a good job highlighting, you know, the amount of layers of people and whatnot needed to produce and broadcast these games. So I did enjoy that side of it during COVID. That was one of the only good parts about COVID, I felt like. But yeah, that's definitely fascinating to hear from somebody who was on the inside of all of that.
I want to take this a different route real quick, because we're gonna take a break here coming up, and one thing I want to go. It's a somber route, but I have to ask. You know, that we had the tragedy before last season of losing Johnny Gaudreau. I just kind of wanted to touch on, you know, any experiences you may have had with him during your time with the organization. And I know he was briefly with the organization before you retired. But I've got to imagine there had to have been some interaction between you and him. And I just kind of was hoping you could touch on, you know, the kind of guy, the kind of player he is that we all know and love. I think it'd be wonderful for all of us as Jackets fans to hear it from your perspective as well.
Not only did I have interaction with Johnny, but I was very close with his dad, Guy Gaudreau.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of developed a friendship because Guy spent a lot of time. He lived for his two sons. He coached them. He is a terrific person. I'm talking about Guy here right now. And was, as you can imagine, so devastated to this day. To this day, I've talked to him. I've talked to him frequently since the boy's passing, and it still affects him greatly, as you might imagine. But I'll tell you, Johnny was brought up by his mom and dad and his brother Matthew and their sisters. Just a great family, and I got to know them all. Obviously, I spent more time with Johnny than even his dad and the rest of the family. But Johnny was a very humble guy. He was a terrific hockey player. You look at his size, and much like Cam Atkinson with his retirement and people doubting him, people doubted Johnny hockey as well. But Johnny certainly proved them wrong in college, and was a Hobey Baker winner. And he was so dedicated to the game, so dedicated to his family, much like his parents were. I mean, him and Meredith and the kids meant so much to him. He was just, I get chills thinking about learning of the accident. And my son, who's in the media, was the one that actually called me to give me the heads up, and it wasn't even official at that time that the boys had been tragically killed. And it was very tough to deal with. Very tough to deal with. I was here in Florida at the time. Obviously, I'd already had retired, and I felt such a distance. I felt there was nothing that I could do because I was not in Columbus. I was not able to comfort anybody. I thought about all the players at the time. Johnny was an exceptional athlete, and he had great vision on the ice. And people talk about Wayne Gretzky and his vision, and he was thinking a second and a half. And Wayne and I became pretty good friends through his career. But there was something special about Johnny Gaudreau and him landing. And I wasn't surprised. I had been kind of tipped off because I tried to keep on top of things. And I was kind of tipped off that it wasn't a slam dunk that he was going to go back to Calgary. And then when Columbus got the call, and it was from his agent, Gross, when he called and asked if they would be interested, the Blue Jackets, of course, said, as long as we're not being used as a way of getting more money in Calgary, of course, right, we're very interested. But getting back to, and this is an interesting quick story here, with my friendship of Guy Gaudreau and sitting in the stands for practices and morning skates, and he always sat with Jody and I, or just me, because I was there every day, and Jody had some national work, so sometimes he wasn't around, but I was with Guy every day, and we would talk about the team and the team's need for a center and a number one center, even with the likes of Boone Jenner and the other centerman they had at the time. And he would say to me, "You've got to talk to your buddy JD." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, who's Johnny Gaudreau's best friend but Sean Monahan?" And Monahan was in Montreal, Monahan was in Winnipeg, but he wanted to come to Columbus. Of course, he had a contract. He wanted to be traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets before he ever signed the free agent contract. So I, of course, told JD, and he and Yarmo would talk, but they could never get him away from Montreal or Winnipeg. But it was a slam dunk when he became an unrestricted free agent. And of course, JD had moved sideways so Don Waddell could come aboard. And the Jackets already had the intel that Monahan had one destination, and that was to come to Columbus and join Johnny Gaudreau. Just imagine the devastation for Sean Monahan to learn of the death of his best friend. The wives were best friends. They were going to raise their kids together. Monahan loves Columbus so much, he's considering moving from Canada, making his permanent home in Columbus. That's, I mean, again, that tragedy will be one that we will think about for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, without a doubt, a player of that magnitude, a gushing personality, just beloved by everyone. I still remember sitting on my couch in my living room. I woke up to the news on Twitter, and I should maybe practice the rule of don't do social media first thing in the morning. And that's what I woke up to that day. And it was pretty shocking. And you mentioned this with Monahan too. One thing that both of these two guys were the start of kind of a culture shift, because they want to turn now Columbus into a destination place to play. We know the fans are incredible, and boy, have both of those two, and to shed some positive light, both of those two have really turned this, really put a spotlight on the city and on the team. And guys like Zach Werenski, who are already among the best players in the game, are now getting more attention thanks to the big hearts and passion that these two guys brought to the city by wanting to come here.
Brian, you mentioned Werenski. Let's not lose sight of the fact he's the first player that said, "Hey, this is my home. This is where I want to sign," and of course, sign that extension. He could have gone home. Well. He could have gone home to Detroit, and there were people suggesting that was going to happen. But he said, "No, my home is Columbus." And he too. Talk about players, and I'm sure you can say it about any Blue Jacket and almost any NHL player. They've been brought up the right way. They have respect. And they learn a lot from their families. And the Werenski family, who I got very, very close to, quality people. And Zach certainly is carrying that moniker as well. And he wanted to make sure that people knew this is where he wanted to be. And we can never lose sight of that.
Yeah. And I'll say ditto kind of for Boone Jenner too. I mean, a guy that comes into the organization, makes the big club at a pretty young age. And when I think of him now, I always think of old wily vet Boone Jenner, but I think he's only 31 or 32. He's not very old. And so he's another guy who's made a long-term commitment to the city that deserves a lot of credit as well, because at least from my own perspective, it seemed like there was some uncertainty for a couple of years with the franchise at the end of last decade. And, with the shift once Tortorella moved on from the Jackets and everything like that, I just wondered what the long-term success of the franchise would look like. But honestly, guys like Boone and guys like Zach and then Johnny and Sean in their wake as well are really just shedding a really positive light on this team. And again, to bring it back to Johnny, it's good to find a silver lining like that when dealing with tragedy like this. This is such a city and a fan base that's become so well glued together. Like it feels like a brotherhood or some kind of camaraderie. It just feels like everyone is so much tighter together now than ever, thanks to that young man.
Yeah, man, that was beautifully said. You pretty much said what I was gonna say and then added on to it. So I'm just gonna leave that alone. So. With that being said, I know we have some more questions for Jeff. I'm loving every second of this, but I do think it's time that we step aside and get a word in from our friends over at Xenopucks, and then we'll come back with more questions for Jeff. It's finally here. Everybody listening, we've been hyping this episode up for over a week now. Jeff's finally here. We're getting everything out there. We're getting all the inside information, and we're having a great time doing it. Everybody stick around. This is the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks.
All right, and we're back. So thanks again to our friends at Xenopucks for sponsoring our show. We appreciate their help each and every week. Jeff, let's continue on here. I want to talk about another former player of the Jackets who spent the last few years of your career you spent calling games with him. But before you were calling games with Jody Shelley, you were watching him be one of the toughest customers on the ice in the NHL when he was with the Jackets. And for you as a broadcaster, how do you go from watching a guy who night after night could pound in pretty much anybody in the league, and then now he retires and he's wearing this nice sharp suit sitting next to you in the broadcast booth? What was the transition like to watch Jody Shelley go from a tough-nosed player to being one of the most insightful color analysts in the game?
One of the best, and I've been encouraging him along the way here. In fact, not telling any tales out of school here, but Jody, in the latter years of his career, of course, he spent, and he'd be the first to tell you, a lot of time on the bench until he was needed. He pretty well determined that he wanted to get into broadcasting as a second career. He talked to Bill Clement, who then was working for the Flyers, and he picked my brain. Of course, I got to know Jody in the latter years of his playing career before he left and got traded to San Jose. And I certainly welcomed it. And I've talked to a lot of potential players about broadcasting after their hockey careers. I've talked to a lot of young people, and my sense is I've got to encourage these people, and I certainly did that with Jody, and he'd be the first to tell you that. But he came in with his feet on the ground and ready to take off. Bill Davich was my analyst at the time. I've gone through several analysts throughout my career and brought a lot of young analysts on, starting in Washington with Sean Simpson, former goaltender with the Baltimore Skipjacks and the Washington Capitals organization. I started with Craig Laughlin in the late 80s, and he's still broadcasting for Washington. Worked in Florida with Dennis Potvin,
Nice.
Hall of Famer, one of the great defensemen. And then with Columbus, when I came aboard, Doug said, "You hire your own analyst. Whoever you want to bring in to work, we'll sign us a long-term contract." And he had a new wife and didn't want to make a long-term commitment, but Brian Engblom was my broadcast partner the first year. And of course, he went on and did some national stuff after that. His wife, for whatever reason, didn't like Columbus, so it was a short stay. Danny Gare, who was a member of that Calgary Centennial team with John Davidson, retired former captain of Buffalo Sabres, was with me for a couple of years. Then Bill Davich moved from radio to TV. And then when Jody came aboard, he was the third guy, and he was between the benches. And eventually the organization thought Jody should be the analyst, and Bill became the pre and post game host alongside Brian Giesenslaw. And that's how it kind of evolved. But it was an easy transition for Jody. Jody does not want to leave a stone unturned. He just wants to grow as a broadcaster, and he's done it. And he's been dedicated, and he's above all a very good person. And anybody that knows Jody or sees him walking the streets of Columbus or at a mall, they know the kind of quality person that he is.
I think that's a very fair, what's the word I'm looking for, assessment of him. I don't know him personally, but just based off what I see from watching Blue Jackets, he's extremely knowledgeable. And, one thing I'm a firm believer of is just because somebody's a former player doesn't mean they're cut out to be an analyst or any type of broadcaster.
True.
But he's one of those guys, it almost looks like it's second nature to him when you're watching him on TV. He's so knowledgeable and personable with anybody he's speaking to. I mean, especially on the players, his behind the glass interviews he does with the players are just always, he doesn't ask those stereotypical kind of, what do you need to get going here this next period? He's very good with in-depth questions, and it makes it enjoyable to watch. And I think that's another thing where Jackets fans were spoiled in what we have with the organization, but especially in commentary as well. I mean, he really makes intermission reports, everything watchable. So big Jody Shelley fan over here. And it's really nice to actually hear everything that you have to say about him, because obviously you were right there with him. And it's just nice to hear when, you think so highly of somebody, and then somebody who's with that person on a daily basis confirms it. It's just a wonderful thing to hear.
Had a lot of great nights with Jody on and off the air.
I can imagine. I'm definitely jealous. I will say it. In all of this, you did get to live the dream. You got paid to watch hockey for a living, and I know I couldn't ask for more than that. But
I got to correct you on one thing, Andy.
What's
Just
that?
one thing I got to correct you on.
Yeah.
I never worked a day in my life.
There you go. There you go. I was gonna say at
You
no
didn't know
point
what
would
was coming, did you?
No, I had no idea. I was very intrigued. I was like, what did I mess up?
I was gonna say, I don't think he said anything I didn't hear. But.
Yeah, I was. But I mean, yeah, no labor
Never
involved.
worked a day in my life. Not
Yeah,
too many
that-
people can say that, because
No,
if you
I-
love your
I-
job. I shouldn't say that. A lot of people that doctors and attorneys and everybody in whatever walk of life and whatever occupation they've had. There's a lot of people that have loved their jobs too. But when people say, "Boy, you're very fortunate," working in the environment you work in, never worked a day in my life.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's almost something out of a dream. I guess
I got
that's the
paid
way
to
I
do
would put
this.
it.
I got
Yeah.
paid to do this. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I pay
everybody's
you.
paying to everybody's paying to get in the door to watch the game, and Jeff's showing up.
They're
with a
paying him to
big
get
ear-to-ear
in.
smile. Yeah, you gotta love it.
So, well, I'm definitely jealous of you in that aspect. It's just, like I said, that's for many people, that's a dream come true right there. So, definitely.
That's why
jealous.
I said earlier, if you have a dream, go for it. Do not leave a stone unturned. You can accomplish what you want. I'm a firm believer in that. And that'll be in the book too.
Absolutely.
And we're very excited for that book. Full transparency. That was kind of what, convinced us to start doing a podcast. And it was always a point where Brian and I are just so over the top in love with the sport of hockey that we were always talking about hockey. We would spend hours on the phone talking about hockey. And it just got to a point where we were like, why don't we just do this on a podcast? Like, even if nobody listens to it, at least it's given us a reason to do it. And,
Good for you.
yeah. And honestly, it's been fun. We've been doing this for a few years now. And this is our third season of this show. And by no means are we, like any type of ESPN level commentary or anything like that. But it's the show's been good to us. The guys that sponsor our show have been good to us. It's been fun. And obviously, had we not done this, we wouldn't even have the opportunity to sit here and do this.
Yeah.
The biggest question I've been wanting to ask you today is, so now that you're retired, the two-part question. One, what have you been up to in retirement? And number two, do you ever think maybe I should have done one more year as a broadcaster?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. That's a loaded question.
It is.
There are a couple of reasons why I retired. Number one, my wife continued to live here in Florida while I was in Columbus. I had an apartment there and lived there for the 8 months of the hockey season. And I felt, after all she's been through over the years, not only here in Columbus or in Columbus and Florida, but my other stops along the way, I needed to spend more time. She wanted to travel. When the hockey season ended, I didn't want to travel. I traveled all season, so I owed it to her. Also, I had a young grandson who I'm very, very close to. His name is Crosby. Not
Nice.
not named after Sydney, but they're very close though. Crosby knows and has met Sid.
Nice.
He's a terrific guy. In fact, the night that the Blue Jackets honored me, March 31st or 30th, it was Pittsburgh that was there, and he spent time with my family. My whole family came in. But I needed to spend more time with him. I needed to spend more time with my wife. And I just decided that I needed a couple of surgeries. And that's, what I've been doing since retiring. I had a couple of surgeries that needed to be done. I had them done. One was neck surgery. And I'd put it off for so many years, and it became somewhat potentially dangerous if I was in a car accident. So I had some disc work done. So I thought it was the right time. Should I have gone one more year? Probably in retrospect, yeah. And especially when my daughter decided to take my grandson and her husband, and they moved back to Maryland, where we spent 10 years because my son-in-law took a new job. So, yeah, I would have kept working if my grandson wasn't around and didn't need the surgeries, etc. But I miss it. I stay in touch. I spent a considerable amount of time in Columbus last hockey season. I plan to do that again this year. It's the 25th anniversary, and the Jackets want me back for a couple events there. So, I'll be in Columbus. But the bottom line, I had 20 great years in Columbus, over 20 great years, and it was the highlight of, for me personally, my career.
That's incredible. And the one thing I really have to commend about all of that is, you feeling like you owe it to your wife. Like, I gotta spend more time with my wife, and I can relate in a sense to that, because my wife spends a lot of time in Florida for work. She goes back and forth, so she's the traveler. I'm the one here, but I can relate to you in the sense of, man, I want to be with my wife a lot more. Yeah. And especially from a traveling standpoint, because we both like to travel as well. We just got back from Europe back in the summer, and so I really commend that. And I think it takes a lot, especially when you have a career as wonderful as being a broadcaster in the NHL. I can only imagine how difficult of a decision that is to have to make, especially if there's nothing truly forcing you to retire and it's optional. It's the right time. And I think it speaks a lot when you're able to make that determination on your own. So that's just really commendable.
All right, let's move on here then. A couple more questions before we let Jeff get back to his Sunday. So you're retired now, and I assume obviously throughout your broadcasting career, you would use your time in the summer, spending time with your wife. Is there a favorite vacation spot you guys have? Is there something you do every off season? Like, hey, we have to go here, or we have to do this. Or do you guys like to just kind of stay in and enjoy the time together and just relax with the family?
Well, she traveled. Anytime I wanted to go, just say, pack your bags, and she's ready to go.
Nice.
I kind of like the idea of just kind of staying here in Florida, just chilling. We've already done one major trip to Europe this past summer. We're in the process of setting up another trip. So that's something that we'll look forward to and do regularly. And now, with my daughter having moved back to Maryland, we'll be making trips there. My son and two granddaughters are actually in Toronto. I mentioned my son's in the media as well. So we'll be spending more time up in Toronto as well. And we've got some other trips across the state. For a while, after I left the Panthers and moved to Columbus, we purchased a home in Naples, Florida, on the West Coast. So we kind of like that as well. We've got friends over on the West Coast and family on the West Coast, so we could certainly travel across Alligator Alley and spend time there too. So
absolutely,
we're moving and grooving right now.
That's good.
That's
I would
good.
say, and aside from everything else, I mean, yeah, you look great from a guy that's just living his best life now. I mean, you look good, you look happy. So, I mean, I'm really glad retirement's been good to you so far.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
yeah. But man,
Appreciate it. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I know I speak for everybody when we say how missed you are in Columbus, and like Brian mentioned earlier, Mearsy's been doing a great job. But you are definitely missed for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I have a lot of people, on social media, sending things, and a lot of friends, and talk to Jody, a couple, 3 times a week. And yeah, when you're familiar and work with somebody for a while, you're going to miss them, and that's certainly the case both ways. So, I had to be honest. I miss being around the players because I had a great relationship with a lot of them, and miss being around the coaches and getting their input. So, yeah, I'm a lifer. I'm a Blue Jacket forever. So
that was one thing I noticed, especially the night they honored you. And I don't mean to cut Brian off from his questions he has, but I just noticed that it wasn't just the media team that appreciated you so much, and just the fan. It was the players too, the close connection you had with the players. And I just feel like that's not something you see with every organization. But it was like, yeah, it was like they were losing a father figure in a sense when you went to retire. I mean, you could tell how deeply rooted you are in the Columbus Blue Jackets family, and it really showed inside that locker room.
yeah, it did. I mean, they asked me, as I said, with the picture behind here, the team picture with me in the center, that night that they took it, they were honoring me. I had no idea what they wanted, but the PR, Greg, called and said, "Hey, the boys want you in the room at 5:30," and I went down to the room, and the guys stood up and were clapping and, "Come on, Jeff, get in the center of the picture here." They all had the Jeff Rimmer T-shirt on, and it got pretty emotional. And then Pascal Vincent, the coach at the time, said he wanted me to announce the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
sweet.
that night, I announced the starting lineup, and I had a hard time keeping it together. I just didn't announce the lineup. I said my dream was to be a player, but the guys just broke out laughing. I wanted to be a player. It wasn't good enough. And now here I am announcing the lineup. I'm going to be a coach here, and I'm going to give you guys what for. And I went through the lineup. Jet Greaves was just up and starting, and I was getting him all encouraged. You're going to get the win here tonight. If you remember, Werenski was 4 points behind breaking Seth Jones' record.
Yes.
Points by a defenseman. I told him he's going to get 4 points that night. And he got the 4th point, and Eric Goodbranson, we had a little reception after the game upstairs in the lounge, and Founders Lounge, and Goodbranson came up and said the boys were just howling on the bench because when he got that 4th point, he lived up to the Rimmer record.
Yeah.
Hang on a second here.
It's an incredible
I
story.
see what I'm excited.
Here's the puck. Here's the puck. And
no kidding.
Wow.
It's the winning point. So Werenski presented this to me up in the lounge after.
That's incredible.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow. I mean, and again, that just all goes back to you. It really shows how much those guys cared for you and how much you meant to them.
Yeah.
But I got to say, the fans, the fans had me very emotional, and they started chanting Rimmer, Rimmer, Rimmer. And I kept saying, just drop the puck, drop the puck.
Yeah.
I was losing it. If you were watching the game at home, I was about to lose it. I just got so overly emotional. And there was one other thing that happened that night that really got me. And that is I got Glenn from PR called and said, before the ceremony, the head referee, Bill McCreary, wanted to have you knock on the referee's door. And I said, well, what does he want? So he said, hey, I just want to let you know how much we've appreciated you over the years. And you've been fair to the officials and been a great broadcaster. And we just wanted to tell you. And then he told the 2 linesmen and his fellow referee, I want you guys to watch the Rimmer reception. So they were literally standing maybe 10 feet away from me. They watched the whole ceremony. down in the runway, the Zamboni runway, and that was kind of touching as well. And then
That is.
I saw McCreary after the game. That was just a night that I will never forget.
And you shouldn't. It's just that goes to show how much one person can have an impact and mean to an entire organization, from the fans to the administrative staff down to the players and the coaches. I mean, just a hell of a career, man. And with you spending time in Columbus at some point this year, I know we're going to go to games. My only hope is that we eventually all run into each other. I know we've met face to face, but I mean, actually meet face to face. It'd be great to run into you. And
mark it down. I think it's February 4th. I'm going to be doing something special that night for the team. You guys can come up to the booth.
That would be incredible.
That would be an absolute honor. That'd be a privilege to come do that. We'll have to absolutely look.
Wait a sec. Let me just make sure it's the right date. It's the last game. It's against Chicago. Get to see Bedard.
Okay.
Wednesday, February 4th. It's the last game before the Olympics. The players leave for the Olympics.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
That's wonderful. That's far more than either Brian or I deserve.
Yeah, Jeff, that's an incredible honor. We would be thrilled to be a part of whatever's going to go on that night. We would be thrilled to meet you and have a chance to check all that out. I mean, that would just be incredible. I'm not going to
lie. Brian, do you have any more questions for Jeff? Because I know it is Sunday, and I don't want to, as much as I can sit here and listen to him tell stories for, I don't know, weeks. I do want to let the man go on with the rest of his weekend.
Yes, just two things I want to get to quick before we go. The first one I want to say, myself again, I went to school for radio broadcasting. I was aspiring to be a hockey commentator, but obviously life happens, and I had to pursue a career to make sure I could keep the lights on at the house. You know what I mean? So, but as an aspiring commentator, I've looked up to so many great names, especially since I started watching the sport of hockey. I think of like the legendary Doc Emmerich, Dave Strader, God rest his soul as well, another fantastic name. The legendary Bob Cole, who's since retired, and there's so many good commentators in this game. And for me, you were always right at the top of that mountain with those big names like that. Just the way you brought the game to life, just the way you were always animated calling the games. Your excitement behind every goal call was phenomenal. There's plenty of commentators out there now who I wish brought a little more heart and passion into it, but you could feel the passion behind every word you said when you were on the mic. So this sport is definitely not as exciting without you calling its games anymore. But I just want to personally say, as somebody who aspires to still do this one day, thank you for all you did for this game over the last several decades. So thank you. And then to top on that, we have you on here. We might as well ask you, what are your thoughts on this season's Blue Jackets? And I know the start's a little rough to the year, but there is a lot of glimmering hope with this team, with these young stars.
Well, for one, the record may be under 500 right now, but I really love the improved goaltending. And that was the biggest question mark going into the season, whether it's Greaves and even Elvis, who struggled to get his, and it's been a real struggle to get that save percentage over 900. And if you're going to be effective, you got to have over a 900 save percentage. The way he started, I think bodes well for the team. And I think Greaves is pushing him. And Greaves has the ability, as I said previously, has the ability to be the number one. And Elvis is going to have to maintain that save percentage and perhaps even improve on what he's started with here. I also expect the team to have a better year than they did last year. After all, one win from qualifying for the playoffs a year ago. We saw a lot of these players pop. Marchenko's capable of over 40 goals. He's got 5 in the first 5 games. He's an integral part. I'd like to see him get more ice time. I wouldn't be, and maybe I'll suggest it or ask Everson about it when I see him, but why not give Marchenko a chance to kill penalties? Because if you recall, when Ken Hitchcock was coaching this hockey team, and I'm very close to Ken, because when I was working in Edmonton, show you how small of a world this is. When I was working in Edmonton at CBC, his mom was the receptionist in the building, and Ken was an aspiring junior golfer whose love was to be a coach, and went to every coaching clinic. So I've known Ken forever. But the thing about Ken is he's the one that gave Rick Nash the opportunity to kill penalties and make him a 200-foot player. And I think Marchenko is the kind of guy that could kill penalties. And with his speed and with his ability and his offense, I think that could be an added dimension to his game. Certainly, they've got excellent penalty killers. Boone, of course, being one, and now they bring in Charlie Coyle.
Yes.
But I think we got to get Ken Johnson going. He got his first goal last night. We expect a lot from him. We expect a lot from Fantilli. Matejchuk now on the first pairing with Werenski. I think those two can build on that. I think the Jackets have got an excellent chance to make the playoffs. And as they say, and it's not just a cliche, if you make the playoffs as a team in the National Hockey League, all bets are off. Anything can happen. And all you've got to do is point the finger at the Florida Panthers, not the two cups, but the year before when they went to the Stanley Cup final, after not qualifying until the final game of the season or next to the last game, they went to the Stanley Cup final. And had they not made the playoffs, Paul Maurice, who's now genius coach, 2 back-to-back Stanley Cups, Bill Zito, who was the assistant general manager in Columbus, now the general manager there and getting all kinds of accolades for back-to-back Stanley Cups. The two of them, I know for a fact, were both going to be fired on Sunday if Florida didn't qualify for the playoffs.
Wow.
Here, it just shows what a thin line it is. That is not just a rumor. That's fact.
That blows my mind. I never knew it was that. I didn't know the heat was up that high in Florida for them. Holy cow.
Oh, man. All right, Jeff, I got to be completely honest with you, too. In addition to being a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, having lived in Florida, my wife and I are Florida Panthers fans as well.
Yeah.
I did not know that, and my heart just skipped a beat when you said that because I did not know, like Brian said, the heat was that high at that time.
Man, yeah, I did not know they were that close to hitting the reset button. Holy cow.
Wow. Woo.
Yeah.
The owner had the meeting scheduled. So
wow.
Oh my God.
That's it.
Oh my
that just goes to show you, folks, even when you think you know what's going on, you really don't.
Yeah. We had Jeff, we had a former NHL player, Mark Mowers, on our show. He's now currently a scout for Minnesota, and he was telling us, he goes, if you guys could hear some of the stories that us on the inside aren't allowed to tell, he told us that I don't think it was during recording, but he said if some of the stories that we hear or we know of that we're not allowed to tell would blow the public's mind sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that's incredible. And, you know, as a Panthers fan, I'm grateful that things worked out the way they did. But now I'm so.
Well, he's done a terrific job. There's no question he's done a terrific job, but there's such a fine line between winning and losing. That's the point. And you make the playoffs, anything can happen. And there's a primary example, but that's not the only one. You've seen other teams over the years, same thing. Maybe not win the cup, but go a long way in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and nobody gave them a shot to get out of.
Right.
Look at the Jackets and their playoff series with Tampa.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, set a record only to be broken by Boston, and then the Bruins win 62 or 65 wins, and then get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. It's nuts. I
can't believe it's the greatest sport and the weirdest sport at the same time. It's just
and that Boston series. I mean, everybody thought it was going to be over early. It went a long way, but and Marchand, who ended up he ended up being a Florida Panther and winning the cup. He could have ended that series for Boston
on that breakaway.
Yeah. And look what happened. I mean, that's hockey.
That is hockey to a T. And that's one thing we're real big on too with this podcast. The whole purpose behind just hearing ourselves talk was to help grow this game. I just feel like there's always room for growth in this game. And I don't think people that don't watch it don't realize how great of a game hockey truly is and how close of a community it is as a whole. And I know you can attest to that, obviously, having worked in hockey for so long. But that's one thing we like to do. And that's why we like to get everybody's different viewpoints from their time in the league. And this has just been more than I could have ever hoped for. I know I speak again on behalf of everybody in Columbus when I say you're definitely missed in the booth and on TV. And you are what I would consider when I think Blue Jackets hockey, I think Jeff Rimmer, and I don't think there's a fan out there that disagrees with that statement.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I know now that we've got this set, I know we're both very excited to meet you in person. And I'm really excited to get you back on here when your book comes out. I'm very, very excited for that as well. So
anytime, guys, anytime I'm around. So,
Brian, you got anything else, sir?
No, Jeff, I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. Just thank you for everything you've done for the game and being an inspiration to so many. It takes a special person to have the kind of career you did. It really does, to touch so many lives and to be able to be around the game and be good at it for so long is it's just next level stuff. So for me, you're always somebody I'll idolize, and I'm beyond extremely grateful we got to have a chance to speak with you, and again that we're going to get a chance to meet with you in just a few short months.
all right. Whenever you guys want, down the stretch in the playoffs, I'm around. I'm retired. I got lots of free time.
You know what? That's a valid point when you put it that way. All right, everybody. Well, we that'll conclude our interview with Jeff. We're going to take.
I want to say one more thing.
Absolutely,
Sure.
Ryan. If your goal is to still become a hockey broadcaster, my words should encourage you. Do not leave a stone unturned. It's never too late. You're still a young man.
thank you. I appreciate it. Definitely.
And I will, as his older brother, continue to light the fire under his ass to do so. So, all right, everybody. Well, that is it for our interview with Jeff. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we are back. That was one of the coolest moments of my life, I think. And I think you can agree with me on that.
Yeah, that was very fun. I would say, I mean, truthfully, he was as polite and nice a guest as I think we could have asked for. I think we've been fortunate that every guest we've had on has just been really polite and really fun to interact with. But having one of the legends of the game do it, it's like it's a different experience for sure, man. That was extremely cool. I can't wait to meet him in person.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. And now we got the excitement of, aside from meeting him in person, now his book's coming out that he's writing. The fact that he dropped that bombshell on this show is crazy to me, and I'm very grateful for it. Jeff Rimmer, outstanding broadcaster, the true voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Real humble guy, just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And as you heard, if you were listening, that this will not be the last time he's on this show. He will be back, and we will stay in contact with him, and vice versa. We're looking forward to it very much. And just what a great day it was. It was great time talking to him. Just so many stories that I'm sure we didn't even scratch the surface. But again, we'll have him on again. And I'm kind of at a loss for words right now. So
yeah, it's definitely really cool that he was willing to come on and take time out of his day. And I mean, he said it verbatim himself. He's retired. He's got plenty of time. But
he did say that
just to make time for guys, and again, guys that he's never met. I mean, he obviously had no way of knowing if we were total idiots or not, which I mean, we are idiots. So
yeah,
but just for him to make that choice and take the time out of his day just to complete and total professional, and just another example of what makes him the great guy he is. So very, very fortunate we had him on, and yeah, man, I can't wait to meet him and have him on again. That was cool. Yeah,
that was fun. And looks like we're going to be spending some time with him in February down in Columbus. So it should be fun. We're very much looking forward to that. Next week's episode, back to business as usual around here. Other than that, we don't really have much else for today. We've been hyping this up. We were excited to get this episode out. So we're excited to get back to business and keep watching hockey. I should point out that my wife and I are going to a Blue Jackets game here this week, actually, against the Washington Capitals. We're going on Friday. So looking forward to that. Looking excited to get down to Columbus, spending some time down there. And we'll be back with you guys next week around the same time.